So, in the upcoming election on June 7th, in Ontario, it has come out that Ontario will be using electronic voting machines and voter lists for the first time, and this has me worried without a doubt because one thing I've been investigating a little bit, and this will actually go into a video that I'm preparing to drop soon, talking about how there seems to be big data that is taking a starting to play a big part inside of our politics these days. But right now, it's talking about how Way is going to do. It seems that there's going to be a casual ballot that's going on. You know, you go in and you write your ballot in the way you normally do, fill out who you want to vote for, then you hand it in. But Way it's going to do is then it's going to be sent through these machines, and then it's going to automatically count your vote. So by automatically counting your vote, it'll make the process faster, blah, 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 more efficient. This is the whole point. But why this concerns me is because we already now have seen that there are some dangers surrounding electronic voting because there's been some problems in other countries about electronic voting, but the main thing has to do with the manipulation of vote. See, whenever you're relying on a piece of technology to do the job for you, there's always a potential for hacking. There's always a potential for algorithms to change things around. And this is exactly the dangers that I see coming out of this, is that it's going to be used by one party or another, one group or another, to try and manipulate the election results. I mean, this comes on the heels of Justin Trudeau talking about how he wants more security for the upcoming election, yet he's taking away a lot of the restrictions already, such as he's allowing third parties to vouch for people and not provide proper identification when you go in to vote. And the idea of needing an ID has been, honestly, it never made sense to me because, like, the main argument I've heard people talk about is like, well, it's not fair to low income earners and like certain people, certain communities, because they may not have the proper IDs that is necessary, and then they're not allowed to vote. But doesn't everybody in this day and age have a proper ID? You pretty much need an ID to do anything or go anywhere. You need an ID to buy cigarettes. You need an ID to buy booze. If you have a car, you need a driver's license to drive. If you want to travel, you need a passport. There's fucking citizenship cards that are available. There's so many different forms of ID. And the main thing that, at least in America, when I've heard this brought up, had to do with the black community, how it's unfair and it's actually meant as a racist way to prevent blacks from coming out and voting. But this can't be true. I mean, again, they have every reason to carry around an ID just as much as anybody else in the modern culture. In fact, not too long ago, I saw a video which a guy went around and into black communities and asked black people, "Do you have a valid identification card?" Every single one said, "Yeah, I got a driver's license, I got a passport, I got this, I got that." Like, yeah, no, I got an ID, bud. Pretty much everybody has an identification. So right now, though, when we're hearing about this, it mostly has to do with they're saying they don't have the people in order to cover the election, in order to sit in the ballot boxes, help count the ballots, because they also talk about how long this process is. But it's a big danger because we do not, that right now, as it stands, there's really not much protection when it comes to electronic voting. For instance, we have this article that's right here, Ontario Civic Election, the problem with online voting. And this guy, Alexander Essex, says there are no Canadian standards governing how voter data is kept safe. And actually, if possible, I would hope to have this guy, like maybe soon I'll reach out to this guy and see if he'd be willing to come on the podcast, talk a little bit, because I'd love to hear a little bit more about it. But he pretty much he's raising the alarm about using electronic voting. He said, and it says here, a Western University professor who studies cybersecurity is urging Ontario municipalities to truly understand how online voting works before it's implemented. A technology that he warns carries little transparency and has no guarantees that the votes are being counted correctly. Exactly, which is my problem with it. Alexander Essex, professor of computer science who heads a Western University lab that investigates issues of online security and privacy, calls online voting one of the greatest open problems in cybersecurity. And I mean, when we're talking about here in Canada, our current government, the Trudeau government, has been completely complicit in the whole conspiracy theory that Russia hacked the election. Now, maybe it's a little too premature for me to actually call it a conspiracy theory, but all in all, it is something that should be concern most citizens because for this very reason, we could totally see the government being willing to manipulate voter counts. I mean, when we're talking about in America, the the Democratic Party has been on the cutting edge of this sort of using big data in order to target certain people. And we're starting to see, too, how this is also coming into Canada. So, for instance, the Center for American Progress, with its group's NGP van, has constantly used this sort of data in order to mark demographics, mark certain areas, and then target these areas with campaigns or whether it has door to door canvassing. But even we may sometimes in the future see how this may actually they'll use this sort of data and they'll use this sort of technology, maybe some algorithms, in order to manipulate the data. Perhaps this already happened in some are claiming this already happened in the 2016 election. I would have to do a little more research before I could say definitively whether yes or no if that's the case. But the thing is that we have our own in Canada that server that is dedicated for this. This is actually the server that Justin Trudeau used when he was campaigning for the 2015 election, and this is one of the main reasons that he was able to take his government from third place all the way to a majority government. It was the Liberalist server, and again, that's going to be we're going to be talking all about that in my upcoming video. But if you don't want to wait for that, and you would like to actually learn a little more about it right now, there is a YouTube channel that you can go to and learn all about this. And that's a YouTube channel, which I will link in the description of this video, is called Little Gray Cells. And Little Gray Cells has done some great work, in my opinion, for exposing the Trudeau government and the problems surrounding big data. And the guy who hosts that channel, he has a 2-part series that he calls Spoon-Fed Slavery, We Lap It Up. The first one has to do with the big data specifically, and the second one has to do more with AI. So I think most people will actually get more of would actually find it more beneficial to watch the first one with everything we're talking about. But essentially, Justin Trudeau, with the Liberalist server, what ended up happening is he used them where they were marked different areas on the map, areas that they knew they owned definitely, areas that needed more improvements, areas that they couldn't actually areas that they knew that there was no way that they were going to win them, whether they happened to be NDP majority areas or conservative majority areas. But they used this information in order to target certain areas and target advertising against the people. And actually, one way that it was used was for waging online campaigns. So that was several years ago that was going on. But my one fear that may come out of this is that these are going to be used in a much more sinister way, and then it's going to be used in a way that can manipulate the voter count. And this is exactly what my fear was before they even announced it, before I saw this article of what was going to happen in the June 7th election, is that it's going to be used to essentially replace your vote. If they don't like the way you voted, well, then maybe we can manipulate that and make it seem like somebody else, you voted for somebody else, in order to manipulate the results and get a party in that nobody voted for, a way to maybe maintain power for Justin Trudeau in 2019. But this is what's going to be coming up in the June 7th election, and I do think that there is going to be a bigger problem with this, but the June 7th election is just going to be the preliminary rollout for this sort of online warfare, this sort of data warfare that is coming up against us. Is that it's going to be used to see how they can manipulate the votes. It's going to be perfected over the course of the next year, and then it's going to be rolled out come the 2019 election to try and benefit Trudeau and try and keep him in power, because he is losing a lot of support and he's made a fool of himself time and time and time again. So I just wanted to make this quick video to kind of let everyone know the problems that is going on. Let everyone know that this is happening, that there is going to be electronic voting, and what to look out for in the future. All right. Thanks a lot, guys. I'll talk to you all soon.